Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We've finally got a much clearer picture of what Alpha 4.9 is actually going to look like, and despite some of the headline features slipping into 4.10, there's actually more happening here than most. We've got new repeatable missions, combat improvements, weapon balancing that's already dividing the community, more hints about instance gameplay, and even another tease that the mysterious grey Market Basher could finally be arriving next week. So let's break down what actually matters. The biggest news isn't what was added, it's what got delayed. CIG confirmed that Siege of Orison instancing, the new heavy armor system, and several story mission features have all moved into Alpha 4.10, which is currently planned for mid-August. Now, at first, that sounds disappointing, but honestly, I think this is probably the right decision. Instead of holding the entire patch back for another month, they're releasing everything else now, while giving themselves more time to polish the systems that really need it. If instancing is going to become a core part of Star Citizen going forward, it has to work properly, especially for large events like Siege of Orison. Nobody wants that event returning only to be plagued by server issues. Something else caught my attention during Inside Star Citizen. Jared mentioned that Rico Battaglia's return will include fully instanced missions. That wording is really interesting. Because if story missions are becoming instanced, it opens the door for tutorials, narrative content, and other experiences that players can enjoy exactly as CIG intended. No griefing, no players camping objectives, no random PvP ruining your first experience. Personally, I think that's a really smart direction. Star Citizen can absolutely remain an open sandbox while still protecting important story content inside private instances. Those two ideas don't have to compete with each other. Even without those delayed features, Alpha 4.9 still adds a lot. Rico brings an entirely new set of permanent repeatable missions. You'll be prospecting for resources, taking on mining contracts, investigating industrial accidents, tracking missing workers, boarding hostile ships, recovering sensitive data, and completing new salvage contracts. The important thing here is reputation. Instead of running the same contracts over and over, we'll have a much wider variety of activities that all contribute towards progression. That's something players have been asking for a long time. Combat also received some surprisingly useful quality of life improvements. The new hit indicators have been expanded again. You'll now get much clearer feedback when you're damaging shields, penetrating armor, or hitting ship components. Some players have already asked for more options to customize these indicators, especially the audio cues, and honestly, I can understand that the information is fantastic. The presentation probably still needs a little refinement. One feature I wasn't expecting to enjoy as much as I do is the new ship flyby audio. Only a handful of ships currently use it, but hearing a ship scream overhead now has far more presence than before. It's one of those small immersion upgrades that doesn't sound exciting on paper. Until you actually experience it, there are also improvements to distribution centers, new cargo containers specifically designed for missiles and ordnance, combat clothing that finally gives civilian outfits a little protection, new hairstyles, additional navigation markers throughout NICs, and improvements to Valakar behavior that could be laying the groundwork for future boss encounters. Individually, they're fairly small additions. Collectively, they make the universe feel noticeably more polished. Now let's talk about the weapon balancing, because this is where opinions are becoming pretty divided. A few PTU patches ago, CIG reduced the damage of size 1 through size 3 ballistic repeaters by roughly 50%. That is a massive nerf. Against larger ships, those weapons now struggle to make much of an impact at all. Whether that's intentional remains to be seen. Maybe CIG wants smaller ballistic repeaters to specialize against light fighters instead of becoming the best choice for every situation. If that's the long-term goal, then the balance changes make a little more sense. At the same time though, they massively buffed one of the size 4 bearing ballistic cannons. Its damage jumped from around 325 damage per shot to roughly 1200. That's enormous. CIG later explained it had become an outlier during balancing, which is why they pushed it so dramatically. Meanwhile, most of the other weapon changes are relatively minor. The size 5 bearing Gatling saw a small damage reduction along with some adjustments to the Asperia deadbolt and plasma cannons. Compared to the ballistic repeater nerfs, those changes are actually pretty modest. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another balance pass once 4.9 goes live and players really start putting these weapons through their paces, looking beyond 4.9. I actually think the more interesting story is what all of this means for 4.10. Everything seems to be pointing toward instance gameplay becoming a much bigger part of Star Citizen Siege of Orison. Story missions, potentially tutorials, possibly even future distribution center content. It feels like CIG is slowly building the systems they'll need before introducing much larger narrative experiences. And if they can make those experiences feel seamless inside the persistent universe, that could be a huge step forward. There's also one final teaser worth mentioning. Right, at the end of Inside Star Citizen, Jared signed off by saying, "See you at the bash next week." Now, that could simply be a throwaway line, or it could be another hint that the Grey Market Basher finally arrives alongside Alpha 4.9. We've already seen several teasers over the last few weeks, so the timing certainly fits. Whether it's based on the Mustang, another manufacturer, or something completely unexpected, hopefully we won't have to wait much longer to find out overall. I actually think CIG made the right call here. Would it have been nice to get Siege of Orison and instancing immediately? Of course. But I'd much rather those systems arrive working properly than be rushed out just to hit a date. In the meantime, Alpha 4.9 still looks like a solid update that improves the overall experience while setting the stage for a much bigger 4.10 next month. I'm curious what you think. Are you happy with CIG delaying the major features by a few weeks, or would you rather they delayed the entire patch instead? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.